At your engagement banquet, your fiancé raised a champagne glass and waited for you to drink the sedative that had destroyed your first life. You smiled, switched your glass with the man secretly sleeping with her, and walked onto the stage before either of them noticed. "Thank you for coming," you told 300 guests. "The wedding is cancelled. Evelyn Crest can marry Silas Harrow instead. They have already been rehearsing behind my back for 18 months. The ballroom became so quiet that the champagne bubbles sounded nervous. Evelyn's smile cracked. Silas stopped with your glass halfway to his lips. And somewhere beneath the table, your adoptive mother's phone began playing the audio recording you had scheduled 10 minutes earlier. Evelyn's voice filled the room. "Once Ronan drinks it, take his biometric ring. The transfer needs his pulse and fingerprint.
After that, your family can blame him for selling Lattice Shield. And I never have to marry that pathetic replacement son." Silas answered from the recording. "Don't worry. By tomorrow, even his parents will want him gone." Every guest turned toward them. You looked at the two people who had buried your name, burned your body, and celebrated your death in another lifetime. Then you raised an empty glass. "Congratulations," you said. "You finally make a convincing couple." Holy hell. If revenge had a flavor, it tasted exactly like expensive champagne you were smart enough not to drink. Silas stared at the glass in his hand. He finally understood why you had insisted on a toast. "You switched them," he whispered. "You should sit down before your legs make the decision for you." The sedative struck fast. Silas tried to cross the ballroom, managed 2 furious steps, and collapsed into a decorative arrangement of white roses. His face landed directly inside the ice bucket. Several guests gasped. One person laughed and pretended to cough. Evelyn rushed toward him. "Call an ambulance! Ronan poisoned him!" "Interesting theory," you said. "Especially because that was the glass you prepared for me." You pointed toward the ceiling cameras. "The hotel preserved the last hour. Security already has the bottle, both glasses, and the original audio file. If you want to accuse me, please speak loudly. The police recorder is excellent." 2 officers entered through the side doors right on cue. Evelyn went pale. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. To be fair, it had become one of yours. 20 minutes earlier, you had opened your eyes in the same hotel suite where your first life began falling apart. Your engagement suit hung beside the mirror. The banquet invitation lay on the desk. Your phone showed a date 8 years before your death. For nearly a minute, you thought the smoke had damaged your brain. Then Evelyn knocked and entered carrying 2 champagne flutes. That confirmed everything. In your first life, you took the drink because she smiled and said she wanted a private toast before the ceremony. You remembered the bitter taste. You remembered your limbs becoming heavy. You remembered Silas removing the biometric ring from your finger while Evelyn searched your pockets for the encrypted key. When you woke the next morning, Harrow Biomedical's most valuable research package had been transferred to a shell company using your identity. Lattice Shield was not ordinary software. It protected connected pacemakers, infusion pumps, and surgical systems from remote attacks. You wrote its foundation while studying cybernetics. Harrow Biomedical supplied the hardware. Your father promised you a formal authorship contract after the engagement. He never signed it. Silas sold an altered build to a foreign competitor. Then he sabotaged a hospital demonstration and made the failure appear to originate from your credentials. One patient nearly died. News channels called you a reckless heir who gambled with human lives. Your family believed the logs before they believed you. Graham Harrow called you an ungrateful imposter. Moira Harrow removed your name from the family trust. Your 3 adoptive sisters stood behind Silas, the biological son who had returned only 2 years earlier, and demanded that you confess. Evelyn cried for the cameras and claimed you had threatened her when she discovered the theft. You spent 7 months proving a crime you never committed. Then Silas offered to show you the original server ledger. The meeting took place inside an abandoned Harrow data center. There was no ledger. Only fuel, a locked door, and Silas standing safely behind reinforced glass. "You should have stayed grateful," he told you while smoke filled the room. "They adopted you because they thought I was dead. Did you really believe you could keep my life after I came home?" You died with your fists bleeding against that glass. But death was not the end.
Your consciousness remained trapped inside the damaged biometric ring lying beneath the server rack. You could hear the investigation. You could see brief flashes whenever somebody touched the metal. You heard your family accept Silas's story that you set the fire to destroy evidence. You heard Evelyn announce her engagement to him 3 months later. Then one woman entered the ruined data center alone. Isolde Veyne. The entire technology sector knew that name. She controlled Veyne Systems, the largest private cybersecurity firm in the region. Competitors called her heartless. Investors called her impossible. Employees called her only when every ordinary solution had already failed. You had spoken to her once in person. At least that was what you believed. She walked through the burned room, ignored the warning tape, and found your ring beneath a layer of ash. The moment her fingers closed around it, your trapped consciousness saw her clearly. She was shaking. Isolde Veyne did not shake in public. She had faced government inquiries, hostile takeovers, and an armed kidnapping attempt without raising her voice. But she held your ruined ring against her chest, as though somebody had torn the center out of her world. "I found you too late," she whispered. Then she did what your family never bothered to do. She investigated. Isolde spent 11 months rebuilding fragments from the data center. She traced the shell company, the forged biometric signature, and the malicious hospital code. She discovered that Evelyn had purchased the sedative. She found payments from Silas to the technician who altered the logs. Your 3 sisters dismissed her evidence as a corporate attack. Your father threatened to sue. Your mother asked why a woman like Isolde cared about a dead adopted son. Isolde answered with one sentence: "Because Ronan was the only person who ever saved me without asking what I was worth." That was when you remembered. 10 years before the engagement, you found a terrified girl hiding in the university robotics building during an attempted kidnapping. You disabled the electronic locks, led her through a maintenance tunnel, and stayed until security arrived. You never asked her surname. She introduced herself only as Izzy. Later, an anonymous programmer named Winter joined your open-source security project. For 6 years, the two of you exchanged code, arguments, terrible jokes, and messages sent at 3 in the morning. Winter was Isolde. She knew your mind before she knew your face.
And while you chased Evelyn, the woman you called a frightening billionaire had quietly protected your research, paid for your injured professor's surgery, and kept every ridiculous message you sent her. After uncovering the truth, Isolde announced a live broadcast from Veyne Systems headquarters. She promised to release the raw evidence to every regulator and news organization at once. Silas sent men to stop her. They cut the building power, blocked the exits, and triggered the fire suppression system to destroy the storage vault. Isolde could have escaped. Instead, she entered the flooding vault because the only complete copy of your original authorship ledger was inside. By the time security reached her, she had been shot and had lost too much blood. She still kept one hand pressed against the broadcast key. The evidence uploaded. Your name was cleared across every screen in the city. Isolde died with your ring around her neck. Her final words were not about revenge. "If there is another life,"
She whispered.
"let Ronan live long enough to choose for himself."
The moment her heartbeat stopped, the burned ring split apart. Then you woke 8 years earlier with Evelyn standing outside your hotel door. No glowing system gave you missions. No divine voice promised free skills or convenient rewards. You returned with only your memories, your own abilities, and one truth carved so deeply into your soul that death could not remove it. Isolde Veyne had died for you. This time, you intended to reach her first. The ambulance carried Silas away from the banquet under police supervision. The dose was not fatal. Evelyn had needed you conscious enough for biometric verification, so the sedative only turned Silas into an unconscious liar wearing rose petals. Tragic. The officers collected the evidence while your family surrounded you near the stage. Graham Harrow's face had gone dark with fury. Explain this performance. You looked at your adoptive father. In your first life, you had spent months begging this man to hear one complete sentence. Now you felt strangely calm. Evelyn and Silas planned to drug me and steal my authentication key. I recorded them. Police are testing the glass. There is nothing complicated to explain. Your eldest sister, Camille, grabbed the tablet playing the audio. She ran Harrow Biomedical's legal department and treated every emotion like a witness under cross-examination. A recording can be edited. The original is on the hotel's server. You had access to the hotel network. Then wait for the forensic report. Maydeen, your second sister and the company's chief engineer, stared at the canceled ceremony. Why would Silas steal a biometric key? He already has board access. Not to Lattice Shield. Her eyes sharpened. That project belongs to Harrow Biomedical. The hardware does. The core security layer is registered under my university lab.
You all postponed the ownership agreement for 6 months, remember? Your father stepped closer.
We postponed it because family members do not need contracts against each other. There it was. The most expensive sentence in your first life. Then why did Silas need my ring? Nobody answered. Tessa, your youngest sister, looked from Evelyn to the officers. Maybe he was protecting the project from you. You have been secretive ever since Silas came home. Secretive? I wrote the code. And you hated sharing credit with him. The old pain arrived right on schedule. 22 years inside the Harrow family, and 2 years of Silas acting wounded had rewritten you into a jealous replacement. Evelyn saw the opening and rushed toward Moira. Mrs. Harrow, please believe me. Ronan asked me to rehearse those lines for a prank. He switched the drinks because he wanted Silas humiliated. He has been unstable for months. That excuse was so poor it needed medical assistance.
Your mother still hesitated.
Ronan, she said carefully, did you arrange this because you were angry about Silas joining the company? You almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because some disasters were too familiar to deserve another tear. The laboratory will confirm what was in the glass, you said. The server will confirm the audio. Until then, believe whoever makes you comfortable. Evelyn grabbed your sleeve. Please stop. We can talk privately. You don't want to throw away 18 years over one misunderstanding. You removed her hand. You threw it away when you prepared the bottle. I love you. You love the access attached to my finger. Her eyes flicked toward your biometric ring. Tiny movement, perfect confirmation. You took the ring off, placed it inside an evidence pouch, and handed it to the officer. Evelyn's composure finally broke. You can't do this. Our families announced the merger. My father moved capital for this marriage.
Do you understand what you are destroying?
Your business plan? Not my problem. You walked toward the exit. Graham's voice stopped you. If you leave this ballroom, do not expect the family to clean up your scandal. That threat had controlled you since childhood. The Harrows rescued you from foster care. They gave you a name, a home, and an education. Every disagreement ended with a reminder that gratitude had a price. You turned around. I am grateful for everything you gave me. That does not require me to marry a woman who tried to drug me. If protecting myself counts as betrayal, keep your help. Your mother's face tightened. Where will you go? You thought about the woman who entered a flooded vault carrying your innocence in both hands. To find somebody I should have chosen years ago. You left the ballroom before Evelyn could invent another explanation. Outside the hotel, rain hammered the street. Your memory supplied another detail.
In the first timeline, Isolde never attended the engagement banquet. 3 weeks later, news reported that the Veyne heiress had suffered a spinal injury during a highway collision. Her armored car lost steering control while traveling through the Eastern Tunnel. The report called it an accident. After your death, Isolde's security chief proved it was an assassination attempt ordered by her uncle Cassian Veyne. The collision happened today. You checked the time. 41 minutes remained. Your old car waited in the hotel garage. You ran through the rain, ignored 3 calls from Camille, and started the engine with shaking hands. The Eastern Tunnel was 12 kilometers away. Traffic crawled beneath the storm. You took the service road, cut through the financial district, and called emergency dispatch while driving. An armored Veyne vehicle will lose steering inside the Eastern Tunnel at approximately 7:20. Block the lower lane. The dispatcher paused. Sir, are you reporting a current emergency? I'm reporting tampered steering and a possible attack. Send highway patrol and medical rescue now. How do you know? Because you watched the woman inside that vehicle die twice. I received a threat connected to the Veyne convoy. Trace this call if you need proof. Just move. You ended the call and pressed harder on the accelerator. At 7:18, 3 black vehicles entered the tunnel ahead of you. The center vehicle drifted left, corrected, then jerked violently toward the concrete divider. The steering attack had begun. You called the number Isolde used years later for her private security channel.
There was no reason it should still be active. A woman answered immediately. Identify yourself. Mara Quim? Silence. Who is this? Ronan Harrow. The center car's steering controller is compromised. Disconnect the autonomous drive fuse beneath the rear console and use mechanical override.
You have 20 seconds before the attacker locks the brakes. How do you know my name? Ask me after Isolde survives. The center vehicle swerved again. One escort car pulled alongside, trying to shield it from the divider. You overtook on the right and matched speed. Through the dark window, you saw Isolde for the first time in this life. She was leaning forward while Mara tore open the rear console. Your chest tightened so painfully that you forgot to breathe. Alive. She was alive. The compromised car accelerated without warning. Mara shouted through the phone, "Fuse is out, steering still locked." The attacker bridged the secondary circuit. Mechanical release is behind the left rear light. Somebody has to pull it from outside. At 90 kilometers an hour? Unless you have a better afternoon planned. You moved your car closer. The gap between the vehicles narrowed to less than half a meter. Concrete blurred beyond the windows. Your survival instincts began filing formal complaints. You opened your sunroof, secured the seatbelt around your waist, and climbed halfway out. Mara's voice became considerably less professional. What the hell are you doing? Fixing the steering. Hold the vehicle steady. The vehicle is hacked. Then ask it politely. You stepped onto the window frame, reached across the gap, and caught the rear handle of Isolde's car. Wind tore at your jacket. The attacker jerked the car toward the divider. Your shoulder struck metal hard enough to numb one arm. Isolde turned and saw you through the rear glass. Her eyes widened. Even with an armored window between you, recognition hit her face like lightning. She knew you. Not as the Harrow replacement son, as the boy in the robotics tunnel, as North Star, the programmer who argued with Winter until sunrise. You found the emergency panel beside the rear light and pulled. Nothing happened. Sealed. Of course it was sealed. Assassins apparently hated convenient maintenance. You wrapped your sleeve around your hand and punched the thin service cover. Once, twice. The third strike split it. You grabbed the release cable and pulled with everything you had. Mechanical steering engaged. Mara fought the wheel. The armored vehicle missed the divider by centimeters and scraped along the barrier instead of striking it head-on. The impact threw you backward. Your belt caught. Your car spun across one lane, struck the tunnel wall, and stopped sideways. For a few seconds, sound disappeared. Then your airbag deflated, your shoulders screamed, and somebody was pounding on the passenger window. Isolde. She had left her damaged vehicle before Mara could stop her. Rainwater blew through the tunnel entrance behind her. Blood marked one side of her forehead. "Ronan!" You unlocked the door. She pulled it open and touched your face with both hands. The cold, unreachable head of Veyne Systems looked 1 second away from either kissing you or murdering every engineer who built the tunnel. Are you hurt? My shoulder is filing a complaint, otherwise functional. Why were you here? I came for you. That answer stopped her completely. In the old life, she waited more than a decade to hear it. Now you said it before your canceled engagement banquet had finished serving dessert. Isolde's fingers tightened against your jaw. Say that again. I came for you. Her expression changed. Not softness exactly, something more dangerous. A door opening inside a locked room. Mara reached the wreck and pulled Isolde back just as fuel began leaking beneath your car. Romantic interrogation later, she said. Move now. Emergency vehicles arrived within 2 minutes. The early dispatch call had worked. Fire crews cleared the leaking fuel. Paramedics examined your shoulder, Isolde's head, and Mara's patients. Highway Patrol found a transmitter attached to the center vehicle's steering bus. The serial number had been filed away, but you remembered the manufacturer and told them where to look for the hidden batch code. Mara watched you with growing suspicion. Nobody outside Veyne Security knows that override location. The design was discussed on a private engineering forum 6 years ago. The forum had 12 members. Winter was one of them. Isolde went still. You looked directly at her. Your emergency release design was clever, but placing the cable behind an armored service cover was ridiculous. I told you that at the time. Her lips parted. North Star? Hello, Winter. Mara looked between both of you. I am clearly missing several seasons of this drama. Isolde ignored her. You knew? Not until recently. How recently?
40 minutes before saving her from an assassination planned 8 years ago.
Technically true answers were about to become a serious relationship problem.
Today? And your engagement?
Cancelled. Publicly.
Evelyn is answering questions about a sedative. Isolde stared at you for 5 full seconds. Then she turned to Mara. Take us to St. Orison Hospital. Lock down the vehicle evidence. Find who touched the steering bus during the last 72 hours. And Mr. Harrow? Isolde's hand closed around yours. He stays with me. There was no hesitation. No question either. Yandere warning number 1 had arrived, holding your hand in front of 6 police officers. You gently pulled once. Isolde immediately loosened her grip. Her eyes searched your face. Do you want to leave? No. But ask me before deciding where I stay. Mara raised one eyebrow. Nobody spoke to Isolde Veyne like that and remained employed, wealthy, or occasionally visible. Isolde looked down at your joined hands. Will you come to the hospital with me? Yes. She tightened her fingers again. This time, you chose to hold on. At St. Orison, doctors found a hairline fracture in your shoulder and a deep cut above Isolde's temple. Isolde had not escaped completely. The collision compressed 2 vertebrae and damaged the nerves controlling her left leg. When she tried to stand after the scan, the leg folded beneath her. You caught her before she struck the floor. The specialist ordered immediate surgery and warned that she might need a wheelchair for months. Full recovery was possible, but only if scar tissue did not close around the injured nerve. In the first life, the collision shattered both vertebrae and left her unable to walk. The woman who later entered the flooded vault had done it from a wheelchair. This time, you had reduced a permanent injury to a treatable one. It was not the miracle you wanted. It was still a future you could fight for. Isolde entered the private room in a wheelchair, visibly furious at the machine and everyone who suggested she rest. The relief hit harder than the crash. You sat on the examination bed and laughed. Isolde closed the door. Why are you laughing? Because you're standing. She looked down at herself, then back at you. Was I not supposed to be? There was no safe answer. The collision could have been worse. You knew about the collision before it happened. You knew Mara's name. You knew the steering release. You knew I was Winter. She moved closer with every sentence. And when you looked at me in the tunnel, you looked relieved enough to collapse. Her hand rested beside your hip on the examination bed. Who are you, Ronan? The same person who spent 6 years telling you your encryption comments were unnecessarily rude. They were accurate. They were emotionally violent. Answer me. You should have expected this.
Isolde built an empire by detecting what other people tried to hide. You had 2 choices. Tell her that she died for you in another life and risk sounding insane, or lie to the one person who had torn apart a conspiracy because she refused to accept the convenient story. You chose the frightening option. I remember a future where the crash injured you, you said. I remember Silas stealing my work, my family abandoning me, and an empty data center burning around me. I remember you finding my ring after I died. Isolde did not move. Continue. You spent 11 months proving I was framed. Silas sent men into your building. You entered a flooded vault to save the last copy of my authorship ledger. You completed the broadcast, cleared my name, and died before security could stop the bleeding. The monitor beside the bed recorded your pulse accelerating. Isolde's face revealed nothing. Your last wish was that I live long enough to choose for myself, you said. Then I woke up this afternoon. Silence filled the room. You waited for disbelief. Isolde touched the scar beneath her collarbone, a wound from the kidnapping attempt 10 years earlier. For 6 months, she said slowly, I have dreamed about water rising inside a dark room. I could hear your voice, but every time I reached the door, I woke up. Now it was your turn to freeze. You remember? Not events, pieces. A burned ring, a broadcast key, the feeling that I was already too late. She lifted one hand to your chest, directly above your heart. And since the day we met, I have known that if somebody made me choose between the world and you, the world would receive a very disappointing result. That was not a normal confession. It was, however, extremely Isolde. You barely knew me in person. I knew North Star. North Star once sent you a picture of a burnt omelet and called it modern art. I saved the picture. That makes this worse. I saved every message.
There it was.
Yandere warning number 2 had arrived with a complete chat archive. You should have been frightened. Instead, you remembered her dying with your ring around her neck and felt something inside you soften. Isolde, gratitude is not the same as love. Pain flickered across her face before the calm mask returned. I know. I came because I wanted you alive, not because I owe you a relationship. I know. And I refuse to replace one cage with a more luxurious one. Her fingers curled against your shirt. Then tell me the rules of the cage you will accept. That sentence is exactly the problem. For the first time, Isolde looked embarrassed. Only slightly. On her, it was practically a public breakdown. You took her hand. Ask me to dinner. No contract. No security team moving me into your house while I'm asleep. No buying my university. We start with one honest dinner and see what happens. I already purchased the building beside your apartment.
You stared. When?
Last year. The owner refused to improve the fire system. You bought an entire building because my neighbor's smoke alarm was weak? It was offensively weak. Good grief. You had not even reached dinner, and the boundaries needed their own engineering department. Will you have dinner with me? Isolde asked. Yes. Her eyes brightened. At my home. Public restaurant. Private room. Restaurant with other humans somewhere in the building. She considered this as though negotiating an international merger. Accepted. The door opened. Mara entered carrying 2 tablets, a police report, and the expression of a woman who had overheard enough to demand a raise. I found the maintenance engineer who installed the transmitter, she said. He received payment from a consulting company controlled by Cassian Veyne. Isolde's tenderness disappeared. My uncle moved earlier than expected. Earlier than expected. You noticed the wording.
You suspected him? I knew he was redirecting company funds. I planned to remove him at Friday's board meeting. I did not expect him to attack today. In the first life, the injury prevented Isolde from attending that meeting. Cassian took temporary control while she underwent surgery and deleted evidence from Veyne's systems. Your rescue had protected more than her spine. It had changed a corporate war. Do not arrest the engineer yet, you said. Mara looked at Isolde, not you. Isolde looked at you. Why? Cassian believes the crash worked. The convoy cameras were disabled before impact, and the hospital has not released your condition. Let him think you're unconscious. He will use his emergency authority to access whatever he wanted. Mara crossed her arms. You want to bait a board member inside a company you do not work for? I want you to preserve evidence instead of frightening him into destroying it. And if he orders another attack?
Then Isolde stays in a secure medical suite, and we leak that surgery begins tonight. He will focus on the board, not a second attempt. Isolde's mouth curved slightly. You become attractive when planning somebody's downfall. Mara closed her eyes for a moment. Please keep the romance out of operational security. Impossible, Isolde said. You looked at the monitor. Your second life had lasted less than 6 hours. You had canceled an engagement, exposed an attempted drugging, prevented an assassination, confessed reincarnation to a Yandere billionaire, and volunteered to trap her uncle. Some people used a second chance to rest. Apparently, you had chosen the premium difficulty setting. By midnight, news outlets reported that Isolde Veyne had suffered critical injuries in a highway collision. Her secure hospital room remained dark. Mara placed decoy medical staff outside the public intensive care wing. Isolde moved through a service elevator to a private command room 2 floors below. You joined with your injured arm in a sling and a hospital blanket around your shoulders because a nurse threatened to sedate you for real if you refused. At 12:17, Cassian used emergency executive authority to open Veyne Systems' sealed audit vault. He did not delete evidence of the vehicle attack. He downloaded a file called Mirror House. Isolde's expression changed. What is it? You asked. A dormant research acquisition. The project maps behavioral patterns from private communication data. I froze it because the collection methods violated our ethics rules. Mara enlarged the access log. Cassian copied the model and 3 client profiles. 1 profile belonged to Evelyn Crest. 1 belonged to Silas Harrow. The 3rd belonged to you. Well, the 2 conspiracies in your life had just introduced themselves. Mirror House had been built to predict decisions.
Feeded enough messages, purchase histories, location records, and private calls, and the model could estimate what frightened a person, what tempted them, and which lie they were most likely to believe. Cassian did not need magic to manipulate your family. He had data. Silas provided years of Harrow communication records. Evelyn supplied your private messages. Mirror House studied every apology you sent, every argument you avoided, and every time guilt dragged you back after somebody treated you badly. Then it designed the cage. How long did Cassian have my profile? You asked. Mara checked the archive. Initial creation was 21 months ago. Weekly updates continued until this afternoon. This afternoon. Even while preparing the sedative, Evelyn had forwarded your messages to somebody else. Isolde read the collection index. Her voice remained calm, which was never a comforting sign. There are recordings from Ronan's bedroom. Mara stopped scrolling.
You leaned closer. Hidden microphone captures, smart speaker logs, camera snapshots taken through an infected home hub. Your old bedroom inside the Harrow estate had been monitored for almost 2 years. Silas installed the hub after returning home, you said. He called it a welcome gift. Isolde pushed her wheelchair back from the table. Where are you going? To remove every person connected to this project from the planet. Legally? She considered the question. Define connected. Yandere warning number 3 had arrived, carrying possible international consequences. You caught her wrist before she could turn toward the door. We need the complete network, not a collection of frightened employees deleting evidence. They watched you sleep. And now we know. Anger later, preservation first. Her jaw tightened. You are asking me to leave people alive for strategic reasons. I'm asking you not to commit a felony before our first dinner. My standards are modest.
Mara coughed into one hand. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Isolde returned to the table.
Fine, but everyone who viewed those recordings loses access before sunrise.
Reasonable.
And their devices are seized. With legal authorization. You take the joy out of vengeance. I improve its conviction rate. That answer pleased her far more than it should have. Mara isolated the 3 downloaded profiles and replaced them with monitored copies. Cassian believed he had stolen the real model. In reality, every time he opened one of the canary files, a hidden signature reported the device, location, and network path. At 1:13, Evelyn's profile opened inside a private clinic across town. Silas was awake. Apparently, the sedative had worn off just in time for him to continue making bad decisions. At 1:22, your profile opened from the same room. At 1:30, a message left the clinic for Cassian. Target broke expected pattern. Request updated leverage. Mirror House had predicted that you would chase Evelyn before she reached the ballroom doors. It had predicted that you would apologize to your father. It had predicted that the threat of losing the Harrow name would make you drink whatever they placed in front of you. The model was not foolish. It had simply been trained on a version of you who had already died. Can we answer? You asked. Mara looked intrigued. Through Cassian's relay? Mirror House would recommend restoring control through family guilt. Give them the same advice. Isolde understood immediately. You want Silas to pressure the Harrows into bringing you home. He'll expose which family members he uses and what lies he prepared. And you will go back into that house? To collect my research notebooks and the infected hub, with police and an attorney. And me. Do you want to come? That question is insulting. Still require. Isolde leaned close enough for her breath to touch your cheek. Will you permit your terrifying dinner companion to accompany you?
Yes.
Excellent. I will attempt to appear harmless. Mara looked at the armed security team outside the glass wall. Should I order costumes? You are enjoying this too much, Isolde said. I survived the tunnel. My judgment is impaired. At 2 in the morning, your mother called. You let the phone ring twice before answering. Ronan, where are you? At a hospital. Her breath caught. Were you in an accident? Nothing serious. Which hospital? We will come. For one dangerous second, hope rose inside you. Old, automatic, and embarrassingly young. Then Moira continued. Silas woke up. He says Evelyn acted alone and you misunderstood his conversation. Camille believes we can contain the scandal if everyone signs a private statement before morning. There it was. Concern had survived exactly 4 seconds before public relations took the wheel. The police have the recording and toxicology evidence.
That is why we need you here. If you tell them it was a family rehearsal, they may release Evelyn and Silas without charges. The Crest merger can still survive if we manage this calmly. You want me to lie about being drugged so the merger stays alive? I want you to think about the company and the people who depend on us. Did you ask Silas to think about them before he took the glass? Moira lowered her voice. Your brother made a mistake. He made my intended mistake. Ronan. The warning in her voice used to stop you immediately. You looked through the command room glass. Isolde sat at the table, pretending not to listen. Her fingers had gone white around a pen. Somebody in the room was angry for you. That should not have felt revolutionary. I will come to the estate at 10, you said. Police will accompany me while I collect my belongings and the devices used to record my room. Silence. What devices? Ask Silas about the smart hub he gave me. Tell him Mirror House says hello. You ended the call. 3 seconds later, the Canary file reported frantic activity from the clinic. Silas attempted to delete your profile. Instead, the monitored copy recorded his credentials, device serial number, and face through the clinic tablet camera. Mara turned the image toward you. Silas looked terrified. Your dead personality profile just ruined his evening, she said. It has already been more useful than he is. Isolde set the crushed pen on the table. Ink covered her palm. You passed her a cloth. You know those are not disposable enemies. Your mother asked you to protect the man who tried to drug you. Yes. And you are calm. No. I am practiced. That answer erased the anger from her face and replaced it with pain. Isolde took your uninjured hand. You did not have to practice with me. You wanted to believe her. You also remembered the darkness in her voice when she said you would stay with her. Then don't make promises you haven't learned how to keep, you replied. Ask. Listen. Let me disagree without treating disagreement like abandonment. And if I fail, we address it. If you refuse to change, I leave. Her grip tightened involuntarily, then loosened. I hate that option. It is what makes staying a choice. Isolde looked at your hands for a long moment. Then stay tonight, she said. Not forever. Tonight. All right. The future's most feared cybersecurity executive rested her forehead against your shoulder and released one quiet breath. Nobody bought a building. Nobody signed a lifetime contract. For Isolde, this counted as extreme emotional restraint. You slept for 3 hours inside the secure hospital suite. At 9, Mara woke you with clean clothes, coffee, and a threat from the attending physician regarding your shoulder sling. Isolde had changed into a dark suit and transferred into a lighter wheelchair. The cut above her temple was hidden beneath a small bandage. News channels still believed she was unconscious upstairs. While you slept, Isolde had made one deeply restrained and completely reasonable decision. She sent a marriage proposal to the Harrow estate. Not a text, not a private question. 3 armored vehicles delivered a sealed letter, legal documents, and 12 ceremonial cases containing property deeds, investment certificates, rare antiques, and enough jewelry to cause a small liquidity crisis. The outer letter addressed Graham Harrow and requested permission to marry his son, Ronan. Graham did not open it. He told Dame Rebirth Veyne that Ronan had walked away from the family and that Silas was now the only son recognized by the Harrow household. Silas saw the gifts and immediately assumed Isolde wanted him. Then he heard about the spinal injury. His interest survived for almost 9 seconds. I respect Ms. Veyne, he told Ophelia with heroic concern. But marriage requires genuine love. I could never take advantage of a woman facing permanent disability. Please return the proposal. He still asked whether the investment certificates could remain as a gesture of friendship. Ophelia closed every case. Those gifts were intended for the man who crossed moving traffic to save my granddaughter, she said. You could not cross this room without falling into somebody else's champagne. Then she left with all 12 cases. Mara finished the story while fastening Isolde's wheelchair footrest. You slowly turned toward your terrifying dinner companion. You sent a marriage proposal before our first date. I sent it before you established the dinner requirement. You were supposedly unconscious. My hand remained operational. Isolde. Her expression stayed cold, but one finger tapped anxiously against the armrest. In one future, waiting killed both of us, she said. I overcorrected. That was the most honest possible description of 12 armored gift cases. Withdraw it for now. Pain flashed across her face. For now, you repeated. We have dinner. We decide together. If we marry, I speak for myself. The Harrows do not accept or reject on my behalf. And Silas? Already rejected a proposal that never belonged to him. Let him enjoy the achievement. The corner of her mouth rose. Will you still accompany me to the estate? You asked. Yes. Even after they insulted you? Especially after they insulted you. Ready? You asked. No. You paused. No? I have imagined meeting your family for years. In none of those scenarios was I required to avoid destroying their company before lunch. Think of it as a social exercise. I dislike exercise.
You own 6 gyms. They are investments. The police convoy reached the Harrow estate at 10 precisely. Your father waited inside the front hall with your mother and sisters. Camille had invited 2 corporate attorneys. Nadine held a tablet displaying the toxicology report. Tessa stood beside Silas, who looked exhausted but very much alive. Evelyn was absent. Smartest choice she had made all week. Your father saw the police first. Then Isolde stepped through the doors behind you. Every expression in the hall changed. Graham's anger became caution. Camille's legal mask became calculation. Nadine looked confused. Tessa openly stared. Silas looked afraid. He knew about the highway attack. Ms. Veyne, Camille said, recovering first. News reports claimed you were in critical condition. News reports often repeat what they are given. Why are you here? Isolde glanced at you. She waited. Good. I asked her to accompany me, you said. Her company discovered surveillance connected to the device in my room. Graham's face hardened. This is a private family matter. Then your family should not have sold the recordings to an outside behavioral project. Silas pushed away from the wall. That is insane. Ronan is trying to turn you against us because he wants the company. Do I? You've always resented that I came home. You came home with proof of identity. I welcomed you. I gave you my old room because it had the larger balcony. I introduced you to my professors. You thanked me by putting a microphone beside my bed. Tessa looked at Silas. What microphone? There isn't one. Excellent, Mara said. Then you will not object to forensic inspection. Police entered your bedroom with a warrant covering the smart hub and related network devices. Silas moved toward the stairs. An officer blocked him. Nobody touches the room until collection is complete. Graham turned on you. Did you invite police into our home without speaking to us? Somebody drugged a champagne glass and monitored my bedroom. I decided conversation had completed its trial period. Nadine lifted the toxicology report. The laboratory found midazolam in a biometric sensitizer. The glass Silas drank from carried Evelyn's fingerprints. Your mother looked at Silas. You said there was nothing in it. I didn't know. Evelyn must have intended to frighten Ronan. You discussed taking his ring, Camille said. A rehearsal. What exactly were you rehearsing? Felony theater? You asked. Tessa flinched. Silas pointed toward Isolde. She edited the audio. Everyone knows Veyne systems can fabricate voices. Ronan has been working with her behind our backs. There it was. The same accusation that destroyed you in the first life, delivered 8 years early. Only now, Camille had the original hotel server image. Nadine had toxicology. Police had chain of custody. The lie landed and died on the floor. I obtained the audio before Ms. Veyne entered the hotel, the lead officer said. No edits were detected. Your eldest sister looked at Silas as though he had become a hostile witness. Why did you lie? Because Ronan planned this. He hates me. He switched the glasses because he wanted me unconscious. Isn't that poisoning? You cannot complain that somebody returned your own trap unopened, Isolde said. Her voice remained soft. Silas stepped back anyway. The forensic technician returned, holding the smart hub inside a transparent evidence bag. We found a secondary storage board and 2 hidden microphones. The device was connected to an external relay last night. Moira covered her mouth. Tessa looked sick. Nadine stared directly at Silas. You gave him that hub. The store installed it. Then provide the receipt. I don't keep receipts from 2 years ago. Camille's tablet chimed. Mara had sent her one verified image from the Canary file. Silas opening your behavioral profile inside the clinic. Camille rotated the screen. Do you keep memories from 12 hours ago? Silas stopped speaking. That was the moment your family finally saw the first crack. Not the entire conspiracy, not the fire that had not happened. Just enough truth to make denial expensive. Your mother approached you. Ronan, I did not know. I believe you. Relief crossed her face too quickly. Then you continued. Not knowing does not make what happened acceptable. You chose not to ask. We can fix this. Stay here while the police investigate. We will remove the device, suspend Silas, and speak as a family. Silas looked at her. Mom! She ignored him. In your first life, you would have accepted that offer before she finished. One place at the table, one word of concern, one chance to become the easy son again. You looked around the house, where every room carried a memory.
Then you looked at Isolde. She did not tell you what to choose. She simply waited.
I'm collecting my belongings, you said. The police keep the device. My university work leaves with me. I will stay elsewhere until the investigation ends. Graham struck the table with one palm. You will not remove Harrow property. My notebooks predate the company project. You developed them while living under this roof. Then send the claim through counsel. Do not take anything from the boxes. His eyes widened. You had never told your father no in front of outsiders. The ceiling did not collapse. The family name did not burst into flame. Apparently, it was just a word. Mara and 2 officers accompanied you upstairs. You packed clothes, university notebooks, an old robotics toolkit, and the small Firefly drone you built the year you met Isolde. The drone's wings were cracked. One motor no longer worked. You had kept it because the frightened girl in the maintenance tunnel said its blinking light made the darkness less terrible. You placed it carefully inside your bag. When you returned downstairs, Nadine stood near the door. The Lattice ownership meeting is Monday, she said. Dad wants the project assigned entirely to Harrow Biomedical. Then Dad should prepare for disappointment. Ronan, the company funded the hardware tests. And my university grant funded the security kernel. I offered a joint license for 6 months. Nobody signed because Silas wanted lead credit. Nadine looked away. She had chaired the meeting where your name was removed from the proposal. I thought you were being possessive, she said. You thought that because Silas told you what I wanted before you asked me. If I review the repository and prove your contribution, will you return? My authorship is not an audition for family membership. Review it because patients deserve secure software.
What happens between us comes later.
Nadine nodded slowly. It was not an apology. It was the first honest crack in her certainty. You accepted exactly that much. Outside, Isolde's car waited beside the police vehicles. Mara loaded your boxes into the trunk. Where are you staying? Isolde asked. A hotel near campus. No. You looked at her. She closed her eyes briefly. Will you stay in one of my secure apartments until Cassian and Silas are contained? Separate apartment? The unit across from mine. You have an apartment across from your apartment? I bought the floor. Naturally. No hidden cameras. None. No entering without permission. Her face suggested this condition caused physical pain. Agreed. And rent at market rate. Absolutely not. Then I choose the hotel. Isolde stared at you. You stared back. Mara checked her watch. Can the romantic housing crisis continue inside the armored car?
Cassian's board meeting begins in 40 minutes.
Half market rate, Isolde said. 75%.
Utilities included.
Fine. She opened the door. You are exhausting. You are trying to turn tenancy into courtship. Efficient use of property. The Veyne Systems board assembled under emergency rules at noon. Cassian believed Isolde was unconscious. He requested temporary executive control, claiming the company needed stable leadership during the crisis. 11 directors joined in person. 4 attended through encrypted video. Cassian sat at the center of the table wearing sympathy like an expensive tie. You watched from the adjoining security room with Isolde and Mara. He practiced that expression, you said. Mirror House recommended it, Mara replied. The Canary file had reported every request Cassian sent that morning. He asked the model how to win over 2 undecided directors, how to discredit Isolde's ethics concerns, and how to frame the crash as evidence she had become unstable. Mirror House answered with carefully poisoned advice. It told him Director Bell feared government investigation. In reality, Bell had spent 30 years working with regulators and considered transparency a competitive advantage. It told him Director Say disliked Isolde's spending on employee security. Say had proposed the program. Cassian stood and delivered the most precisely wrong speech of his career. By minute 6, Bell looked offended. By minute 9, Say was openly checking whether Cassian had suffered a neurological event. At minute 12, Cassian presented the copied Mirror House model as proof that he could create a new revenue stream. Every screen in the boardroom changed. The model's collection ledger appeared. Illegal recordings, purchased medical data, private profiles. Payments from Silas Harrow and Evelyn Crest. Cassian stopped breathing. Mara pushed Isolde into the boardroom. The directors rose. Her uncle looked as though the dead had arrived early to collect him. "Your surgery," he said. "Cancelled. I found the cause of my accident." Mara placed the steering transmitter, payment records, and audit vault log in front of him. Cassian recovered faster than most men would. "You staged the crash report to entrap a board member. You attempted to kill me and used the delay to steal a prohibited model. The distinction should survive legal review. The model belongs to Veyne's systems. The board froze it by unanimous vote. You sold profiles to outside clients through a company controlled by your son." Cassian looked toward the directors. "Isolde is emotionally compromised. She has spent company resources monitoring a man who rejected her for years." There it was. He could not defeat the evidence, so he aimed at her love for you. Several directors glanced toward the security room glass. Isolde's eyes became glacial. "Bring Ronan in," she said. "You entered carrying your university identity, lattice registration, and the police receipt for the infected hub." Cassian smiled without warmth. "The adopted Harrow boy. Did she tell you how many people she assigned to watch you?" You stopped beside Isolde. "No," I asked. Every gaze shifted to her. Isolde did not hide. "4 years ago, I ordered passive protection after Ronan was attacked near campus," she said. "The team monitored external threats, not his private residence or communication. 6 months later, he requested no further protection through our anonymous project channel, and I withdrew it. Last year, I purchased the neighboring building after a fire code failure. That decision was personal and excessive. It used my money, not company funds." The direct confession removed Cassian's weapon before he could swing it.
You added, "I learned about the building yesterday. We are discussing boundaries." None of that explains why Cassian sold recordings from my bedroom to Silas Harrow. Director Bell looked at Cassian. "Did you?" "The data came from a client. I did not know how it was obtained." Mara played a voice note captured through the canary relay. Cassian's voice filled the boardroom. "Tell Silas the bedroom feed is worth another 500,000. The replacement son talks in his sleep. We can use the mother's guilt response if he resists." Well, that lie lasted shorter than Silas at the champagne table. The board suspended Cassian's authority unanimously. Police waited outside with an arrest warrant for conspiracy to commit assault, unlawful surveillance, and attempted sabotage of the Veyne vehicle. Cassian stood while officers approached. "This company will collapse under your obsession," you told Isolde. "One man looks at you, and you forget everything else."
Isolde did not blink.
"You tried to kill me for a data model. I crossed a boardroom for a person. Only one of us forgot what people are worth." The officers removed him. No execution, no secret dungeon. Just evidence, handcuffs, and a room full of directors who understood exactly what he had done. Legal revenge lacked dramatic flames. It also survived appeal. After the meeting, Isolde remained alone beside the boardroom window. You entered and closed the door. "You disclosed the protection team. You asked for honesty." "I did. Thank you." She turned. "Are you angry about the building?" "Yes." Her face went still. "Are you leaving?" "I'm moving into the apartment we negotiated. Anger is not disappearance." That concept seemed new to her. "You can be angry and stay?" "People do it every day. Sometimes they even talk. Terrifying technology." Isolde stepped closer. "Then talk. Do not solve fear by purchasing access to my life. If the building has unsafe alarms, tell me. Offer help. Let me decide whether I want it. What if you choose danger? You explain the risk. You don't remove the choice. And if the danger is severe? Call emergency services. Break a window if the building is actually burning. Do not buy the street because you imagined smoke." The smallest smile touched her mouth. "Very specific. You require specific documentation. Will there be penalties? Yes. What kind? I canceled dinner. Her expression became horrified. Apparently, regulatory fines meant nothing, but lost dinner achieved immediate compliance. I understand, she said. Good. Can I kiss you? You had expected another argument. The direct question knocked every clever response out of your head. Yes. Isolde touched your face as though confirming you were real. Then she kissed you. No aggressive claim, no attempt to trap your arms.
Just careful pressure, held back so tightly that you could feel how much she was refusing to take. You wrapped your good arm around her waist and pulled her closer. That broke the restraint. Isolde kissed you like she had waited across 2 lifetimes and had finally received permission to stop pretending otherwise. When you separated, her composure had vanished. Dinner, you reminded her. Move it to my home. Restaurant. I want to kiss you again without Mara calculating exit routes. From the hall, Mara's voice came through the door. I can still hear you. You laughed against Isolde's forehead. Restaurant, you said. Private room. Other humans in the building. Afterward? Ask afterward. Isolde looked at the clock as if considering whether time itself could be bribed. Your first date was scheduled for 7. By 6:30, you discovered that she owned the restaurant. You agreed to a public restaurant, you said as the manager greeted her by title. It is open to the public. You purchased it last year, before our agreement. Technically correct, morally irritating. The private room overlooked the river. 2 tables around you remained occupied, satisfying the letter of your condition. The customers were all Veyne security employees wearing poor disguises. One man had paired a baseball cap with a formal earpiece. Another held a menu upside down. Other humans, Isolde said. Your interpretation of normal dating is a crime scene. You nearly died in a tunnel 6 hours ago. Normal has been postponed. Fair. The waiter brought your favorite noodles without taking an order. You looked at Isolde. Winter and North Star discussed food for 6 years, she said. This is not surveillance. Accepted. Her shoulders relaxed. For the first 20 minutes, the conversation felt surprisingly ordinary. You argued about encryption architecture. She accused your code documentation of emotional negligence. You accused her review comments of war crimes. She admitted she still possessed the burnt omelet photograph. Then you placed a small case on the table. What is this? She asked. Open it. Inside lay the repaired Firefly drone from your old bedroom. You had replaced the damaged motor during the afternoon and polished the scratched wings. When Isolde touched the case, the drone rose, circled once, and projected a soft pattern of stars across the table. Her face lost all expression. You kept it. I thought the girl in the tunnel might want it back someday. You knew I was terrified. You were 15 and being chased by armed men. Terror was a reasonable response. I told you I was cold. You also held my sleeve hard enough to stop circulation. Isolde lifted one hand beneath the drone's light. Afterward, I searched for you for 3 years. Why didn't you tell me when you found North Star? You spoke about Evelyn constantly. Ouch. Constantly? 47% of personal messages during the first year. You calculated it? I was trying to understand the appeal. The data never resolved the question. There was history. There was bad judgment. Also true. Isolde watched the Firefly land beside her glass. I thought if I became useful enough, you would eventually look at me. Then I hated myself for thinking about love like an acquisition. So I stayed winter and bought my neighboring building. Growth is not linear. You laughed. The honesty was messy, uncomfortable, and much safer than worship. Why did you save me in the future? You asked. I don't remember enough to answer. Try now. She considered it. Because a world that kept your name buried was factually wrong. I could correct it, so I did. You died doing it. That part was inefficient. Isolde. Her gaze met yours. And because I loved you, she said. Not wisely, not safely, but completely. You reached across the table. I don't love you completely, yet. The words hurt her. You saw it. You continued anyway. I know your sacrifice. I know winter. I am beginning to know the woman sitting here. I want whatever grows between us to belong to this life, not become payment for the last one. Isolde intertwined her fingers with yours.
Then I will make you fall in love with me properly. That sounds like a threat. It is a project objective. No illegal data collection. Cruel limitation. No kidnappings. I had not proposed one. Your pause was too long. The firefly projected stars across her rare smile. For one quiet hour, revenge disappeared. Then your phone vibrated. Nadine had sent a single message. I reviewed the lattice repository. Silas did not write any of the security kernel. Dad already knew. The next message arrived 10 seconds later. Please come to the company tomorrow. There is something in the original ownership draft you need to see. You showed Isolde the message.
Do you trust her? She asked. Not yet. Then don't go.
I need the draft. My legal team can obtain it. That would turn a conversation with my sister into a hostile corporate action. Efficient. Isolde. She studied your face, then released your hand. Will you let Mara secure the meeting room first? Yes. Will you carry an emergency transmitter? Yes. Will you leave if Silas appears? No. I will leave if the situation becomes unsafe. His face alone is not a natural disaster. Debatable. And will you come with me instead of secretly following? That surprised her. You want me there? I want my wife candidate to see the agreement that helped kill me. Isolde's eyes narrowed on two words. Wife candidate. Dinner went well. That title sounds temporary. It is literally a candidate. I prefer wife. Then ask me properly, not through 12 boxes addressed to a family that no longer speaks for me. Isolde became very still.
The firefly drone landed on the table between you. She looked down at its projected stars, gathered all the terrifying authority she used against governments, and somehow sounded vulnerable anyway. Ronan, will you marry me? No speech about debt, no demand that you repay her sacrifice. Just the question you had told her to ask. You thought about the speed. Less than 1 day had passed since you returned. Any normal person would call this insane. Unfortunately, normal people had not shared 6 years of anonymous friendship, watched one another die, survived a highway attack, trapped a corrupt executive, and negotiated apartment rent before dessert. The calendar said 1 day. Your history said much longer. Yes, you said, with conditions. Isolde's expression lit so quickly that the restaurant security team looked away to preserve her reputation. Name them. Separate property unless we deliberately purchase something together. No authority over each other's companies. No surveillance without a specific safety threat. Medical decisions belong to the patient. Either of us can say no without punishment. And we attend counseling before your anxiety turns another apartment block into an acquisition target. Marriage counseling? Individual and together. She considered it. My condition is that you do not disappear during conflict. Say you need space. Tell me when you will return. Agreed. And you sleep in my apartment. That is a request for later tonight. I am asking early. Your face heated. Isolde looked satisfied. The Yandere had discovered scheduling. We discuss it after the courthouse, you said. The civil office is closed. Then tomorrow. She lifted her phone. Do not buy the courthouse. I was going to request the authorized after-hours officer. You stared. That is a real service, she said. I checked before sending the proposal. Of course she had. At 9:30 that night, you entered a small municipal office with Isolde, Mara, Dame Ophelia, and one exhausted registrar who had clearly processed stranger billionaire emergencies. You read every document. Isolde read your conditions twice and added her own by hand. No Harrow family representative attended. No ceremonial cases appeared. No merger depended on the answer. The registrar stamped 2 certificates and slid them across the desk. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Veyne Harrow. Mercer, you corrected. Everyone looked at you. Mercer was the surname on your birth record before the Harrows adopted you. You had not used it since childhood. My legal name remains Ronan Harrow for now, you said. But the marriage certificate should read Ronan Mercer Harrow. I'm not erasing the family that raised me. I'm also not erasing the child who existed before them. The registrar amended the line. Isolde traced the name with one finger.
Ronan Mercer Harrow,
She said softly. Too many names? More of you. I approve. She placed the certificate inside a protective case thick enough to survive artillery. Mara watched. Is the case necessary? Yes.
There are certified digital copies.
Those are not this one.
Yandere warning number 4 had arrived in archival plastic. Outside, you lifted Isolde from the wheelchair to help her into the car. Her arms closed around your neck. "You can put me down," she whispered. "Do you want me to?" "No. I wanted to hear you ask." You carried her the remaining steps. Dame Ophelia pretended to inspect the moon. Mara pretended the car required urgent security analysis. The registrar closed the office window with impressive speed. Inside the vehicle, Isolde held up the certificate. "You are my husband." Legally. Emotionally, still under evaluation. Your evaluation concluded when you climbed between moving cars. That was not husband behavior. That was poor risk management. My favorite kind. She kissed you before the driver finished raising the privacy screen. The apartment discussion did not survive long after that. You slept in Isolde's room. The details belonged to the married couple and nobody operating a recap channel. What mattered was that she asked before every new step, you answered honestly, and the woman who once believed love required possession learned that permission could be far more intimate than control. The next morning, you woke with Isolde's arm locked around your waist and her phone resting in the nightstand. The screen displayed a live floor plan of the apartment. You stared at it. "Isolde." Her eyes opened instantly. "Emergency?" "Why is there a tracking map?" "It shows security staff, external doors, and active alarms. Not you." You checked. She was right. "I removed the resident tracking layer before you arrived," she said. "Mara witnessed it." "Good. You sound surprised."
Pleasantly. She pulled you closer. "Reward me." "For obeying basic privacy?" "Positive reinforcement improves behavior." You kissed her forehead. "Insufficient," she said. You kissed her properly. The security map remained forgotten for another 20 minutes. At Harrow Biomedical, Nadine had reserved a glass conference room inside the research wing. Camille sat beside her with the original ownership folder. Your parents were absent. Silas had been suspended from company access pending the police investigation. Isolde entered in the wheelchair with Mara behind her. Several employees stopped walking. News of your marriage had not been announced. That was about to change. Nadine looked at the certificate case in Isolde's lap. "What is that?" "A document your father refused to open," Isolde said. You sat across from your sisters. "We married last night." Camille dropped her pen. Nadine stared at you as though the reincarnation confession would have been easier.
You canceled an engagement yesterday afternoon. Correct. You married somebody else before breakfast. Also correct. Ronan, that is not emotionally stable behavior. Isolde's gaze chilled. You placed one hand over hers. "You know 8 hours of this story," you told Nadine. "Isolde and I have known each other anonymously for 6 years. We survived a situation yesterday that clarified several priorities. You do not need to approve." Camille recovered her legal voice. "Did you sign a prenuptial agreement?" "Separate property, independent corporate authority, medical autonomy, privacy terms, and exit conditions." "Who represented you?" "An independent attorney selected from 3 referrals." Camille glanced at Isolde. "You allowed that?" "I required it. A contract signed under dependence is a future weapon." Your eldest sister had no immediate objection. That alone might have justified the marriage. Nadine opened the ownership folder. This was the first Lattice Shield draft. Dad signed it 8 months ago. The agreement recognized you as principal security architect and granted your university lab 40% of licensing revenue. Harrow Biomedical retained hardware ownership. It was almost exactly the deal you proposed. Then you reached the final page. A handwritten note crossed the signature block. "Hold until Crest merger. Assign Ronan's share to family trust after marriage." Your father's initials sat beneath it. The engagement had never been only romantic. By marrying Evelyn, you would place your intellectual property income inside a joint trust controlled by the Harrow and Crest families. Silas served as the proposed trust administrator. The sedative was not the beginning of the theft. It was the emergency plan after you asked for independent ownership. "Dad knew the kernel was yours," Nadine said. "He planned to sign after the merger closed." "He planned to assign my share to a trust I did not control." "He thought he was protecting the company." "From its own engineer?" Camille looked sick. "I drafted the trust structure."
Evelyn's father told me Ronan requested family management because he disliked financial decisions. Did you ask me? She closed the folder. No. At least she did not decorate the answer. Why show me now? Nadine turned her tablet around. Repository records filled the screen. Because Silas submitted a new ownership claim at 5 this morning. He says you sold Lattice to Veyne Systems through the marriage and demands an injunction. He attached source files as proof that he co-developed the kernel. Files stolen from my room? Older. The metadata dates back 3 years. Impossible. Silas had not returned to the family 3 years ago. You examined the code. The functions looked familiar because you wrote them. The comments did not.
Somebody had copied your university repository and altered the metadata to insert Silas's name.
Mirror House could predict behavior. It could not rewrite a cryptographic commit chain held by the university. The timestamps are forged, you said. My lab signs every commit against an external academic ledger. Professor Elion keeps the physical key offline. Nadine released a breath. Then we can disprove it. We can. But first we identify who accessed the old draft. Camille checked the archive record. 4 people. Dad, me, the Crest attorney, and our former finance director. The finance director now worked for Cassian Veyne's shell company. There was the bridge. Cassian designed the trust. Evelyn pushed the marriage. Silas prepared the fallback theft. Your father signed because the structure promised to keep Lattice inside the family. Everybody believed they were using everybody else. Only you were supposed to lose. Isolde read the forged claim. Withdraw Lattice from Harrow Biomedical. Veyne Systems can build the hardware. Nadine's head snapped up. That would destroy 2 years of testing. Your company tried to steal his ownership. Silas did. Your father approved the trust. The temperature in the room fell. You raised one hand. Stop. Both women looked at you. Lattice protects medical equipment. Moving the project to punish Harrow Biomedical delays deployment and risks patients. I will not turn safety infrastructure into a wedding gift or a family weapon. Isolde's jaw tightened. Then what do you want? The original joint license, revised with independent audit. My university lab keeps the kernel. Harrow produces hardware. A third company verifies every release. No family trust. No Veyne ownership. Nadine nodded slowly. Harrow can accept that? You do not speak for the board. She almost smiled. You sound like Camille. Cruel. Camille ignored the insult. What third company? You looked at Isolde. Lantern Gate. Her expression changed. Lantern Gate began as the open-source project you and Winter built anonymously. 3 years ago, the platform attracted hospitals, banks, and transportation clients. Isolde turned it into a private company while protecting North Star's identity. You had assumed she owned it. Lantern Gate is not taking new contracts, she said. Why? Because the founding share agreement requires both creators to approve medical sector work. Winter approved. North Star disappeared. You stared at her. You registered me as a founder? You wrote 41% of the original code. I used an alias. The escrow agreement verifies identity through the robotics Firefly key. Your repaired drone sat inside Mara's case. How much of Lantern Gate do I own? 38%. Nadine nearly choked. Lantern Gate was valued higher than Harrow Biomedical. You had entered the room prepared to defend a university license and discovered that 6 years of late-night code already made you wealthier than the family trust. Your financial literacy had just been slapped by its own source repository. Why didn't you tell me? You asked. North Star refused payment during the first funding round. He said open-source work should remain free. I placed the shares in escrow in case he eventually developed common sense. You could have sent a message. I sent 14. You replied with penguin stickers. Camille looked between you. Is this how billion-dollar governance works? Apparently, you said. Isolde folded her hands. Lantern Gate can perform the audit if its board approves. You will need to claim your shares publicly and accept the technical chair position. I don't want a title handed to me because we're married. The title was reserved for North Star 3 years before I knew his surname. The board will still interview you.
They are unpleasant. You selected them.
Exactly. That changed the calculation. You were not being gifted a corporation. You were finally being asked to claim the work you had already created. "Arrange the interview," you said. Isolde's eyes warmed. "Yes, chairman candidate." "Do not start." Too late. Before leaving Harrow Biomedical, you copied the ownership draft through a verified legal channel and signed nothing. Camille agreed to freeze the Crest Trust. Nadine promised to preserve the forged files without warning Silas. Your parents requested a meeting. You declined. Not forever. For today. The distinction was important, even if it disappointed the part of you trained to answer every family summons. Lantern Gate occupied 6 floors of an angular building beside the river. You had seen photographs online. Entering as North Star felt different. The lobby wall displayed the project's first public release. Your code. Your terrible documentation. Winter's ruthless corrections. Somebody had framed the original conversation beneath it. North Star. If users require instructions, the interface has already failed. Winter. If developers refuse instructions, the developer has failed. You stopped in front of it. You framed an argument? It established company culture, Isolde said. It establishes that you won. Same thing. The board interview lasted 4 hours. Nobody cared that you married Isolde. One director asked whether the marriage created governance risk. Another demanded that Isolde leave the room. She did, although the door closed with the emotional force of a threat. They gave you corrupted code, an incomplete acquisition file, and a live simulation of a hospital network under attack. You failed the first simulation. The attacker reached 2 infusion pumps before you isolated the subnet. Instead of hiding the failure, you explained why your old architecture trusted the device registry too long and rewrote the check in front of them. The second simulation stopped the attacker before the first command executed. The board voted 6-1 to release your escrowed shares and appoint you interim technical chairman for 90 days. Permanent appointment required an external audit and shareholder vote. The single opposing director shook your hand afterward. I voted no, because your incident documentation is still terrible. Consistent feedback. Fix it, and I may dislike you less. Fair enough. When the elevator doors opened, Isolde waited outside with the wheelchair angled directly across the corridor. Well? You held up the temporary access badge. She looked at it, then at you. Interim? 90 days. They made my husband temporary? The board did its job. I can replace the board. Counseling, immediately. Mara pushed the wheelchair into the elevator before Isolde began a hostile takeover of her own governance structure. Your appointment remained confidential until the company verified North Star's identity. That secrecy lasted 4 hours. Evelyn's closest friend, Bianca Lowe, worked as an account manager on the 3rd floor. She saw you leaving a systems meeting with a temporary badge and made the most convenient assumption possible. So the mighty Ronan Harrow is applying for a job, she said near the lobby. I heard your family threw you out after that banquet stunt. You kept walking. Bianca followed. Evelyn has been crying all night. If you apologize now, she might still speak to her father about the merger. Please tell Evelyn I am married. Bianca laughed. To the woman from the tunnel? You expect anyone to believe she married an unemployed adopted son overnight? Mara stopped beside the elevator. Would you like me to correct her? No. Reality has excellent timing. You left without another word. Bianca immediately called Evelyn. By the time you reached the secure apartment, Evelyn had transformed the information into an entirely different story. According to her imagination, you had failed to find work, staged a fake marriage to make her jealous, and entered Lantern Gate because you wanted a salary impressive enough to win her back. Mirror House had not created that level of delusion. That talent was entirely natural. 3 days later, the police released Evelyn pending investigation. She claimed the champagne bottle belonged to Silas and insisted she believed the conversation was a harmless rehearsal. Her father hired 2 former prosecutors and began pressuring the hotel staff. Silas remained suspended but returned to the Harrow estate. Graham had not removed him from the family. Your sisters divided into 3 camps. Camille believed the evidence but wanted a quiet settlement. Nadine believed Silas manipulated the project and began reviewing every repository he touched. Tessa believed you and Isolde were using the scandal to steal Harrow Biomedical. Your mother sent messages every morning. Have you eaten? Your room is still here. We can discuss the trust. Silas is frightened. Please do not provoke him while police investigate. You answered only the first. Yes, I have eaten. Repairing a family relationship did not require pretending the damage never happened. It required enough distance to see whether anyone wanted you or merely wanted the conflict to stop. Isolde read none of the messages unless you showed her. She did, however, ask Mara to verify every food delivery after your mother mentioned eating. One boundary improved. Another anxiety found a side door. You discussed it during the first counseling session. Dr. Mira Sol asked Isolde what she imagined would happen if she did not protect you from every possible threat.
He dies, Isolde answered. No hesitation. And if he makes an independent choice you consider unsafe? I stop him. Even if stopping him damages the relationship? A damaged relationship can be repaired. Death cannot. The logic was brutally clean. Dr. Sol looked at you. What do you hear when she says that? That she is still inside the future where arriving late killed both of us. Isolde's hands tightened on the wheelchair arms. And what do you need? The counselor asked. For her to separate real danger from the fear of danger. If a car is hacked, break the window. If I choose a restaurant she dislikes, do not buy the kitchen. The kitchen had sanitation violations, Isolde said. There were 2 expired permits. Violations. Dr. Sol wrote something down. How do we know when intervention is justified? Isolde asked. Together, you created 3 levels. Immediate physical threat meant act first. Credible but non-immediate risk meant warn, share evidence, and plan together. Anxious possibility meant ask, not control. Isolde called the system inefficient. Then she saved it to her phone and sent a copy to Mara before leaving the room. Progress did not always look romantic. Sometimes it looked like a 3-level threat chart pinned beside a billionaire's calendar. Her rehabilitation began the same week. The spinal surgeon removed damaged tissue successfully, but Isolde still could not lift her left foot. The nerve transmitted weak signals that disappeared beneath inflammation. You were not a miracle doctor. You were, however, an engineer who spent 6 years building secure sensors for human-machine systems. Nadine connected you with Dr. Priya Sen, a rehabilitation neurologist who had tested lattice prototypes. Together, you designed a temporary stimulation brace that read Isolde's intended movement and activated the correct muscles without forcing the joint. The first fitting hurt. Isolde said nothing while sweat gathered along her temple. You stopped the calibration. Why? She asked. Because you're in pain. Continue. Pain changes the signal. We rest and adjust. I can tolerate it. I know. That does not make it useful. In the previous life, she had entered a flooding vault with a bullet wound and finished the broadcast while dying. Endurance was not her missing skill. Trusting somebody else to pace the rescue was much harder. You lowered her leg into a warm support bath and checked the sensors. Do you think I will walk again? She asked. The doctor thinks recovery is possible. The signals improved after surgery. That was not my question. You looked up. For once, Isolde did not want data. She wanted your belief. Yes, you said. I think you will walk again. And if recovery stops before that, I still choose you. Her expression trembled. Do not say things like that while kneeling in front of me. Why? Because Mara is outside, and I am trying to preserve workplace dignity. Mara's voice came through the door. Workplace dignity left during the courthouse operation. Isolde reached for the nearest cushion. Mara wisely moved away before it struck the door. The brace detected its first voluntary ankle movement 2 days later, barely 3 millimeters. Isolde looked at the monitor as if it had announced a national victory. You looked at her face and decided the movement was worth more than any company share. That afternoon, you visited a specialist workshop to order a better housing for the brace controller. The standard medical case looked ugly and caught against her clothes. You designed a slim wrist device that displayed nerve signals, therapy reminders, and an emergency call key. The workshop owner suggested a platinum shell with a small line of dark gemstones. She will hate anything decorative, you said. Then why the gemstones? They are status lights. Those are sapphires. Expensive status lights. The device cost more than your old car. You paid from your first Lantern Gate distribution, not Isolde's account. Bianca happened to enter the workshop while you approved the design. She saw the gemstones, heard the price, and watched the clerk place the order under your name. By the time you reached Lantern Gate, Evelyn had received a message. Ronan ordered a custom platinum bracelet. He pretended it was a medical device, but it costs $2 million. It has to be for you. Evelyn read the message 3 times.
Then she smiled. In her version of reality, the cancelled engagement, toxicology report, public audio, new marriage, and restraining warning were all an elaborate attempt to make her appreciate one expensive bracelet. Human confidence was impressive. Untreated narcissism was undefeated.
Evelyn arrived at Lantern Gate the next morning carrying a lunchbox, a public apology prepared by her attorney, and enough perfume to overwhelm the lobby ventilation. Security stopped her at the entrance. She announced that she was your fiancée. The receptionist checked the news, checked your marriage record, and asked whether Evelyn required medical assistance. She did not appreciate the concern. Bianca used her employee access to bring Evelyn upstairs. That decision ended Bianca's future at Lantern Gate, although she had not learned it yet. You were reviewing the lattice audit inside a glass meeting room when Evelyn appeared. She placed the lunchbox on your tablet. "We need to talk." "Security said you were not authorized." "Bianca brought me. Don't punish her. She understands that 18 years mean more than one ridiculous day." You looked through the glass. 2 security officers were already escorting Bianca toward human resources. Reality remained efficient. Evelyn sat without invitation. "I know about the bracelet." "What bracelet?" "You don't have to pretend. Bianca saw the order. I admit I was angry, but 2 million is excessive, even for an apology." Your brain needed several seconds to process the confidence required for that sentence. "The device is from my wife." "Please. You married her to punish me. Now that Silas has been suspended, we can fix everything. My father will still approve the merger if you withdraw the police statement. You attempted to drug me. Silas prepared the bottle. Your fingerprints were on it. Because he handed it to me. Ronan, I was manipulated too." The tears arrived. Evelyn had always been excellent at producing them exactly when evidence became inconvenient. She opened the lunchbox. Inside sat truffle pasta, grilled fish, and pastries from a restaurant 2 blocks away. "I cooked your favorites." The restaurant label is still beneath the lid. She looked down. There it was. Somewhere in the city, one careless employee had saved you 20 minutes of acting. Evelyn closed the lid. "The point is that I brought it. The point is that you lied before I took one bite. Why are you being cruel? Telling you no is not cruelty." She reached across the table and grabbed your hand. "You loved me." "I did." The honest answer startled her. "And come home." "No. Love does not erase what you chose to do. It does not give you permanent access to me." Evelyn tightened her fingers. "That unstable woman will never understand you like I do. She collected your messages for years. She bought buildings around you. Aren't you afraid of her?" You removed Evelyn's hand. "Isolde admits what she did, listens when I object, and changes her behavior. You lie while the restaurant receipt is touching your wrist. The comparison is not helping you." The meeting room door opened. Mara pushed Isolde inside. The new rehabilitation brace rested along Isolde's injured leg. Her face revealed nothing, but you recognized the danger in the stillness. She had heard enough. "Mrs. Harrow," Evelyn said with a thin smile. "Or should I call you temporary Mrs. Harrow? Ronan and I were discussing our history." "I heard." "Then you understand that 18 years cannot disappear overnight." Isolde looked at you instead of answering. "Do you want her here?" The question mattered more than any threat. "No." Isolde turned toward security. "Escort Ms. Crest from the building. Revoke Bianca Lowe's access and preserve the entry logs for human resources." Evelyn stood. "You cannot order me away from my own fiancé." "Husband," Isolde corrected. "He will regret choosing a cripple who treats him like property." The room went cold. Mara's hand moved toward Evelyn. You raised yours first. "Stop." Everyone did. You looked directly at Evelyn. "You are insulting an injury caused by attempted murder." "You also just admitted you came here expecting me to violate my marriage. Leave voluntarily, or the police receive a harassment complaint with this recording." Evelyn's face twisted. "You would call police on me?" Again. Security escorted her out. She shouted that the bracelet belonged to her until the elevator doors closed. Silence returned to the meeting room. Isolde's hands rested too calmly in her lap. "You told her you loved her," she said. Past tense. "I dislike grammar. Do you want the dishonest answer or the useful one?" "I want every memory of her removed from your brain."
Not available. Veyne Systems has experimental. No. She exhaled through her nose. You knelt beside the wheelchair and removed a small case from your bag. What is that? The bracelet Evelyn thinks proves I worship her. You opened the case. The platinum rehabilitation controller rested inside. Its status stones remained dark until you fastened it around Isolde's wrist.
Then 3 points illuminated, displaying nerve activity from the brace. Isolde stared at it. You designed this for me.
The old controller catches on your sleeve. This one tracks therapy, calls Mara if you fall, and locks the brace before the knee twists.
It cost $2 million.
The stones are extremely dramatic status lights.
You used your own distribution.
I buy things from my wife. Occasionally unreasonable things.
Isolde touched the center stone. Her eyes became suspiciously bright. Say the last sentence again.
The status lights are dramatic?
The other one.
I buy things from my wife.
She grabbed your collar and kissed you hard enough to turn one status light yellow from increased pulse.
Mara examined the ceiling.
The medical alert works, she said. Excellent prototype testing. Isolde released you only to throw a folder at her. The folder missed. Mara had years of practice.
Evelyn's insult had consequences, but not the kind Isolde originally wanted. She did not bankrupt the Crest family in a burst of rage. She asked Veyne Compliance to review every active Crest contract for risk connected to Cassian and Mirror House. The review found falsified collateral, illegal client data, and 2 loans supported by the expected Harrow merger. Veyne Systems terminated only the contracts containing violations and reported the records to regulators. 3 banks conducted their own reviews. By the end of the week, Crest Capital had lost access to its largest credit line. Evelyn called it Isolde's revenge. Technically, it was compliance. The distinction did not make the bankruptcy forecast feel kinder. Your second week as interim chairman became a parade of audits, therapy sessions, rehabilitation appointments, and increasingly ridiculous attempts by Silas to regain control.
He sent a formal proposal asking Lantern Gate to certify Harrow Biomedical's lattice build. The proposal listed him as co-inventor. You invited him to present. Silas arrived wearing a new suit and the confidence of a man who believed family pressure had finally forced you to cooperate. Graham came with him. So did Tessa. They entered Lantern Gate's largest technical review room, expecting to meet the former chief executive. You watched through the privacy glass with Isolde. How long will you make him wait? She asked. His appointment is at 2. It is 2:12. The board asked 12 extra questions. I could make him wait 4 hours. That would be copying his personality. Cruel observation. At 2:15, the review panel entered. 5 engineers sat across from Silas. He began with a speech about family innovation, patient safety, and his years of work on Lattice Shield. One engineer asked him to explain the kernel's rotating trust graph. Silas answered with 3 fashionable phrases and no functioning meaning. The next engineer asked why his claimed commit used a cryptographic library released 8 months after the timestamp. Silas blamed the documentation error. The third asked him to compile one function from memory. He held the marker like it had insulted his ancestors. Tessa shifted uncomfortably. Graham interrupted. Mr. Harrow is here as project sponsor, not a programmer. The technical authorship issue can be resolved by counsel. The panel chair closed the proposal. Lantern Gate does not certify projects with disputed provenance. Silas leaned forward. Ronan is manipulating this process. Fire him, and Harrow Biomedical will triple the audit fee. That was your cue. You opened the privacy glass and entered. Silas's face changed. Why are you in the executive observation room? I work here. He laughed once. Bianca said you were a temporary applicant. Do you really think marrying Isolde gives you authority over her company? Lantern Gate is not her company. Then whose is it? The panel chair stood. Interim Technical Chairman Mercer Harrow owns 38%. He is also the original developer you identified as North Star in Appendix 3. Silas looked at the proposal, then at you. Then back at the forged authorship page where he had claimed North Star's functions as his own. You almost felt sorry for him. Almost. You set me up, he said. You submitted the document. You selected the code. You signed the authorship statement. I merely provided shares. Graham rose. Ronan, end this embarrassment. We can settle ownership privately.
You mean before regulators see that Silas filed a false technical declaration? He was advised by counsel. Which counsel? Nobody answered. Cassian's former attorney had prepared the filing through a Crest subsidiary.
The web kept tightening because the villains refused to stop adding their own knots. Silas snatched the proposal from the table.
You think owning shares makes you important? Isolde handed them to you because she is obsessed. Without her, you are still the orphan our family rescued.
The door opened behind him. Mara pushed Isolde into the room.
Those shares were registered 3 years before our marriage, she said. Ronan built the company. I protected his ownership. Learn the difference.
Silas looked at the wheelchair.
For 1 second, his fear turned into contempt. You sent that proposal to me, then changed your mind after Ronan saved you.
Isolde's expression became almost peaceful, dangerously peaceful.
The sealed letter carried Ronan's full name. Your father refused to open it because he said only one son mattered. You rejected a woman who never asked for you and requested that her gifts remain. The story would be amusing if it were not so humiliating.
Tessa looked at Silas.
You told us she begged you personally. That is not what I said. You showed everyone a message. The outer card. It said the Veyne family requested marriage. For Ronan.
Tessa's certainty cracked. The panel rejected the audit proposal and preserved Silas's false declaration for legal review. Graham left without speaking to you. Tessa remained near the door.
Did you really create Lantern Gate? She asked. With Isolde and hundreds of contributors. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. 3 years ago, I invited all of you to the first conference. Silas scheduled a family dinner the same night and said my little programming club could wait. Tessa remembered. She had sent you a message saying not every hobby deserved applause. Her face lost color. I didn't know. You keep saying that as if knowledge arrives without asking. She flinched. You did not enjoy it. That was the frustrating part. Your sisters had hurt you.
Watching the truth hurt them did not restore anything. It only proved pain could change direction.
Review what Silas told you, you said. Start with evidence. Decide what you believe after. Tessa nodded and followed your father out. 3 days later, a storm struck the city. Lightning cut power across the river district. Backup generators restored Lantern Gate within seconds, but the secure apartment remained dark for nearly a minute while its independent system restarted. You were at Harrow Biomedical reviewing an emergency patch with Nadine. Isolde was home with Mara. The darkness pulled something open inside her. She remembered water rising in the future vault. She remembered the broadcast key beneath her bleeding hand. She remembered your ring against her chest and the certainty that you were already dead. When emergency lights came on, Isolde no longer saw the apartment. She saw the vault.
Mara found her on the floor beside the wheelchair, dragging herself toward the locked office where your Firefly drone was charging. The rehabilitation brace had twisted. Blood marked the bandage near her spine.
Miss, stop! You will reopen the surgical site. Isolde pushed her away. Ronan is inside. The door is flooding. Ronan is at Harrow Biomedical. He is safe. They're killing him again. Mara reached for the emergency sedative. Isolde caught her wrist with frightening strength. Do not take him from me. The apartment security system interpreted the struggle as an intrusion. Steel shutters covered the windows. Interior doors locked. The Firefly drone began flashing behind the office glass. Mara activated the highest threat alert. Your rehabilitation controller vibrated against your wrist at Harrow Biomedical. Isolde fall detected. Acute stress response. Apartment lockdown active. You left the repository without explaining. Nadine ran after you. What happened?
Isolde is in danger. I'll drive. Your shoulder still isn't cleared.
You wanted to argue, then remembered the threat chart. Immediate danger meant act first. Accepting help counted as action. Fine. Nadine drove through rain while you spoke to Mara through the emergency channel. Do not sedate her unless she is about to injure herself again. Keep your voice low. Tell her where I am every 30 seconds. She thinks I locked you inside the office. Open the remote camera on my phone. Show her. She smashed the wall display. Use yours. The connection opened. You saw Isolde on the floor, eyes fixed on something that did not exist. Mara held the phone near her. Isolde, look at me. Her gaze moved toward the screen. Ronan? I'm in Nadine's car. We're crossing the river. You are inside our apartment. The vault is gone. The water is not real. Thunder shook the connection. Isolde jerked and tried to reach the office again. The ring, she whispered.
I need the ring. The burned biometric ring did not exist in this timeline, but the Firefly key did. Mara, bring her the drone. Do not unlock the office. Use the charging hatch. Mara opened the small service panel and pulled the drone through, its wings illuminated in Isolde's hands. She stared at the stars projected across the dark floor. Her breathing slowed by one fraction. I am alive, you said. You reached me in time. Promise? Watch the screen. I am coming home. Do not leave again. I am not leaving. I am moving toward you. The distinction reached her through the panic. By the time you arrived, security had manually opened the apartment. Isolde remained on the floor holding the drone. Mara had a split lip and bruised wrist, but stayed beside her. You crossed the room slowly. Isolde. Her eyes found you. For 1 second, she looked terrified that you were another memory. Then you knelt and placed her hand against your heartbeat. Real, you said. She collapsed into you. Not gracefully, not quietly. The woman who faced hostile boards without blinking buried her face against your shoulder and shook so hard that the Firefly fell between you.
I watched you die, she whispered. I couldn't open the door. I couldn't reach you. That life ended. What if this one ends too? Then we do not spend it treating each other like prisoners of the last one. Her fingers tightened in your shirt. I hurt Mara. Yes. You did not tell her it was fine. It was not. You injured your leg and activated a lockdown. We will treat the injuries, apologize, and change the emergency plan. Will you leave me? I am staying tonight. Tomorrow we speak with Dr. Saul and Mara. What happens after depends on whether you take responsibility and work to prevent it. The answer was neither abandonment nor unconditional pardon. Isolde closed her eyes. I will. Mara wiped blood from her lip. For the record, I am requesting a helmet during thunderstorms. Isolde looked at her. I am sorry. Mara went still. In 12 years, Isolde had apologized to her exactly twice. Accepted after medical treatment, Mara said. And after the helmet budget is approved. Nadine stood near the doorway, speechless. She had seen the feared Isolde Veyne broken by the memory of losing you. She had also seen you refuse to excuse dangerous behavior simply because the love behind it was real. She remembers the other life, Nadine said quietly. You looked at her. There was no point hiding anymore. Pieces. And you remember all of it. Yes. Did our family really abandon you? Isolde's arms tightened around you. You answered anyway. Yes. Nadine's face crumpled. Did I? You testified that the malicious code matched my habits. You believed the forged repository. She sat down as though her legs had failed. And you died?
Silas locked me inside the old data center and started a fire. Nadine covered her mouth.
I defended him today. You also drove me here when Isolde needed help. People are not one decision. What you do with the truth matters next. For the first time since Silas returned, one of your sisters believed you before he had the chance to answer. The next morning, Nadine opened every Harrow biomedical archive connected to the old data center. She found that Silas had requested the building's fuel system diagrams 8 years before he was supposed to kill you. The future had begun preparing itself early. The fuel diagrams were only one part of the archive request. Silas had also searched for the university's cold storage ledger, the offline device holding the original signatures for every Lattice Shield commit. He could forge dates, copy comments, and submit false declarations. He could not defeat that physical key. As long as the ledger existed, you could prove the kernel belonged to North Star before Silas ever returned to the Harrow family. So he planned to destroy it. Professor Elion had moved the device after your warning. Only 6 people knew the new location. Nadine was one of them. Her account showed 2 failed login attempts during the storm. Silas has my recovery token, she said. He borrowed my tablet last month during a board presentation. Then let him recover it, you replied. Nadine stared. You want him inside my account? Inside a copy. We give him a new location, a decoy ledger, and a reason to move before the police finish mirror house analysis. Isolde rested in bed while Dr. Sen examined the reopened surgical site.
She heard the plan through the secure call. "No," she said. "You waited." Her eyes narrowed. "You are enjoying this." "A little." "Fine. Credible but non-immediate risk. Share evidence and plan together." Dr. Sen looked between both of you.
Is this a medical protocol? Marriage protocol, you said. More dangerous field, she replied. The decoy ledger went into a secured vault beneath the old Harrow data center. Police installed cameras, air sensors, and remote door controls. Fire crews waited 2 blocks away. The building contained no active fuel supply, despite what the old diagrams suggested. Nadine's copied account showed one message from Professor Elion. Physical ledger moved to Vault C. Transfer before Monday's regulatory review. Silas opened the message within 8 minutes. Then he forwarded it to Evelyn. Their alliance had not survived the banquet cleanly. Silas blamed Evelyn for leaving fingerprints on the bottle. Evelyn blamed Silas for drinking the wrong glass and looking ridiculous in the roses. Neither trusted the other. That made them easy to separate. Mirror House's canary relay remained connected to both devices.
Mara sent Silas a fabricated model alert, claiming Evelyn planned to trade the ledger location for immunity. Evelyn received a different alert, claiming Silas had offered police her private messages. Both messages included an invitation to the Blue Meridian Lounge from an account they believed belonged to Cassian's attorney. At 8 that evening, Evelyn arrived first. Silas entered 5 minutes later. You and Isolde watched from a private room across the corridor. This time, the room genuinely belonged to another customer until Isolde paid for it. Progress. "You said you were recovering in bed," you told her. "The bed had wheels. We moved it into the car." "That is not recovery. Dr. Sen approved 90 minutes outside." Mara held up the doctor's signed note. "Your wife had learned to weaponize medical permission. You respected the effort." Inside the lounge, Evelyn threw the first accusation. "You offered them my messages." Silas laughed. "You were ready to trade me before the ambulance reached the hotel. Because you ruined everything. Ronan was supposed to drink the glass, sign the transfer, and wake up believing he embarrassed himself. How difficult was it to hold one drink?" Mara marked the timestamp. The hidden microphone sent every word to the police observer downstairs. Silas leaned across the table. "You carried the bottle. Your father paid the clinic. Do not pretend you were innocent. And who installed the bedroom hub? Who gave Cassian the recordings?" Another timestamp. This was less a conversation and more a confession competition. You looked at Isolde. Did Mirror House predict this? No. The model underestimated their need to blame each other. Human ego defeats artificial intelligence again. Silas lowered his voice. "The ledger moves tomorrow. Help me take it, and we can still control Lattice." Once the forged commits survive regulatory review, Ronan's shares become evidence of corporate theft. And what do I receive? Your father's merger. The Crest credit line is collapsing because your crippled obsession destroyed our contracts. The air beside you changed. Isolde's hand closed around the rehabilitation controller. You covered it with yours. Anxious possibility or immediate threat? You asked. Immediate threat to her continued possession of teeth. Incorrect category. The chart requires revision. She remained in the room. That was what mattered. Silas promised Evelyn access to the Harrow Trust. Evelyn agreed to retrieve the decoy ledger using Nadine's copied credential. Then both secretly sent messages to the police tip line accusing the other. You could not invent comedy that efficient. When they left, officers did not arrest them. Not yet. The lounge recording proved conspiracy. But the trap at the data center would connect intention to action and reveal whether anybody else remained inside Harrow Biomedical. Your parents received an anonymous copy of the conversation at midnight. Camille called you. Silas admitted installing the hub. Yes. Evelyn admitted the drugging plan. Yes. You knew before sending this. Police knew. You received the copy because you represent the family company and need to preserve records. Camille's voice broke for the first time you could remember. Why did we believe him? Because he made disbelief feel cruel. He returned with a story about losing his childhood. Every question sounded like another rejection. That is not an excuse. No, it is an explanation. What you do next decides whether it becomes an excuse. Camille asked where Silas planned to go. You did not tell her. She was beginning to believe you,
but she was still the Harrow attorney.
If she warned your father, Graham might confront Silas and destroy the operation. Preserve company access logs, you said. Do not contact him.
You don't trust me.
Correct. Not yet. The answer hurt. It was also true.
At 10 the next morning, Evelyn entered the old data center, wearing a maintenance uniform and carrying Nadine's copied credential. Silas waited in a van across the street. He had told Evelyn they would enter together. He planned to lock her inside, trigger the old fire system, and tell police she acted alone. Some people received a second opportunity and chose growth. Silas chose the same murder with a different victim. Evelyn opened Vault C and found the decoy ledger. The moment she lifted it, Silas activated the remote doors. Steel locks engaged throughout the building. Then he opened what he believed was the fuel line. Nothing happened. Police had replaced the supply with harmless, theatrical vapor, carrying an ultraviolet marker. Silas pressed the ignition command. The system recorded his device and displayed one message. Remote action preserved. Thank you for your cooperation. His face appeared on every security monitor inside the van. No, he whispered. Officers surrounded the vehicle. Silas reversed through a barricade and escaped into the service lane. Inside the building, Evelyn realized she had been abandoned. She dropped the ledger, ran toward the emergency stairs, and found the doors locked by Silas's command. The police override should have opened them. It did not. Somebody inside Harrow Biomedical had changed the building controller that morning. Then real smoke entered the lower corridor. Not fuel. An electrical fire in the backup panel triggered when Silas overloaded the dead system. The trap had just become an emergency. Fire crews moved in. Remote cameras failed one by one. Evelyn's location tag stopped inside the basement archive. You watched from the command van.
The room where you died in the first timeline sat directly above her. Your body remembered before your mind did. Smoke in your lungs. Metal beneath bleeding fists. Silas behind glass. For half a second, you could not move. Isolde caught your face between both hands. Look at me. You did. Which life? She asked. This one. Where are you? Command van, east entrance. Are you trapped? No. Your breath returned. The threat chart worked both ways. An engineer reported that the manual basement door used an early Harrow controller. Lattice's emergency authentication could open it, but the building network was corrupt. You could pair locally through the secure bracelet on Isolde's wrist. The rehabilitation device carried a full Lattice test certificate because it controlled medical stimulation. I need your controller, you said. Isolde began removing it. The connection range is 20 meters, the engineer warned. Somebody has to reach the basement stairwell. Fire crew takes it. Their suits block the short-range key. It must remain paired to the registered patient sensor. Everybody looked at Isolde. She could not walk safely. The wheelchair could enter the first corridor, but not the damaged stairs. No, you said immediately. Isolde looked at the smoke feed. Immediate physical threat. Act first. Your surgical wound reopened yesterday. The brace can lock the leg. You carry me down the stairs. The controller opens the door. We find another way. Evelyn has 6 minutes before smoke reaches the archive. You hated that she was right. You also hated that the person inside was Evelyn, not because you wanted her dead, because saving somebody who tried to destroy you would invite every unresolved emotion to scream at once. Isolde read the conflict on your face. We are not saving your former fiancée, she said. We are saving the person behind the door. Her name is irrelevant. The woman Evelyn insulted one night earlier was willing to risk her recovery to keep her alive. That was the difference between power and cruelty. All right, you said. Together. Firefighters covered both of you with breathing masks. You pushed Isolde through the first corridor while water fell from the ceiling. At the damaged stairwell, you lifted her from the chair. She locked the brace straight. You carried her downward. Smoke turned the emergency lights into red ghosts. The old building groaned around you. Every step pulled at your memories. Isolde touched your neck. This one, you repeated. At the basement landing, her bracelet connected to the controller. Authentication failed. The internal attacker had revoked Veyne's certificates. You opened the engineering mode and used the Firefly drone's founding key as a second signature. North Star, plus Winter. The system hesitated, then accepted. The basement lock released.
Firefighters entered and found Evelyn unconscious beside the archive wall. They carried her outside while you returned Isolde to the wheelchair. The moment clean air reached you, reporters captured the scene. Ronan Harrow emerging from the building where he had supposedly planned a corporate trap. Isolde beside him wearing the medical controller that opened the door. Evelyn Crest alive because the two people she targeted refused to leave her inside. No public relations team could manufacture an image that strong. Evelyn woke inside the ambulance. She saw you first. "You came back for me," she whispered. The old hope entered her voice immediately. You shook your head. "We came back because nobody deserved to die behind a locked door. This changes nothing between us." Her eyes moved toward Isolde. She agreed? She was the reason the door opened. Evelyn looked away. For once, she had no performance ready. Police placed her under guard after the doctors cleared her.
The decoy ledger carried her fingerprints. The Blue Meridian recording documented the plan. In exchange for a reduced charge connected to the rescue emergency, she surrendered her complete messages with Silas and Cassian. The internal Harrow accomplice was the company's operations director, a man Graham had trusted for 20 years. He changed the building controller under Silas's instructions and was arrested before sunset. Silas remained missing. He abandoned the van near the river and stole Tessa's car from the Harrow estate. Tessa disappeared with him. At first, the family believed he forced her. Then Camille found the message Tessa left behind. Silas says he has proof Ronan staged everything. "I am going to hear him before you destroy our brother without listening." Even after the banquet, the hub, the forged code, the lounge confession, and the attempted fire, Tessa still wanted one more explanation from him. Silas understood exactly which family habit to use. He took her to the abandoned Crest Medical Campus outside the city. Evelyn's messages revealed a private laboratory beneath the East Wing where Cassian had stored the real Mirror House servers. Silas needed Tessa's hospital credentials to enter. He also needed a hostage. Mara traced Tessa's car through a toll camera. Police formed a perimeter, but the underground lab had reinforced doors and an independent network. Silas sent you a video. Tessa sat tied to a chair beside a bank of servers. A medical infusion line ran into her arm. "Bring the original Firefly key and the Lattice ownership release," Silas said from behind the camera. "Transfer Northstar's shares to me, or your sister receives enough potassium to stop her heart." Tessa's eyes filled with horror. The biological brother she defended had finally removed the mask while she was watching. "Your father demanded that you sign. Camille said the transfer would be invalid under coercion, but could buy time." Nadine asked whether Lattice could block the infusion pump remotely. It could, if you reach the internal network. Mirror House servers connected to Cassian's Canary profile. The hidden monitoring signatures still reported their status to Veyne systems. You and Isolde built a return path through the Canary channel. Silas believed he had used Mirror House to predict you. In reality, the dead model had been holding the door open for you since the hospital. "I will bring the key," you told him during the next call. "Send proof Tessa is alive." He turned the camera. The infusion pump display became visible. Device certificate, network address, current dose. Exactly what Nadine needed. She entered the values into Lattice. The secure channel connected. You disabled remote dosing and locked the pump at a harmless saline rate. Silas did not notice. 30 minutes, he said. "I need 40 to reach the campus. Then drive quickly." "You always wanted to be useful to the family." The call ended. Graham turned away, ashamed. Those words had controlled you for most of your life. Silas still believed they did. The family drove behind the police command unit. Isolde came with you despite Dr. Sen's order to rest. This time, you objected once. She showed you the signed emergency exception, the threat plan, and a medical team assigned to remain beside her. "I planned with you," she said. "Do not confuse disagreement with authority over my body." Your own language returned with interest. "Fine, but you stay in the command unit." Agreed. Real growth was deeply inconvenient when it worked both directions. At the Crest campus, you entered the East Wing carrying the Firefly drone and a signed envelope containing a fake share transfer. Police watched through a camera hidden in your sling. The underground door opened. Silas stood behind Tessa with one hand on the infusion control. "Alone," he said. "My wife is outside." "Of course she is.
You traded one family for a psychopath with money. The psychopath opened a burning door for Evelyn this morning. What have you done for anybody who stopped being useful? Silas's expression changed. Tessa looked at you. Ronan, I'm sorry. Later. You placed the envelope and Firefly on the table. Release her. Silas picked up the transfer. Your signature first. Tessa walks to the stairs first. You are in no position to negotiate. He pressed a pump control. The display flashed. Dose locked by lattice shield. Silas pressed again. Nothing happened. Looking for this? Nadine's voice came through the lab speakers. Every Mirror House scream changed. The Blue Meridian confession played across them. Evelyn admitting the drugging, Silas admitting the hub, his command at the data center, his threat to Tessa. All preserved, time-stamped, and uploaded to police. Silas grabbed the Firefly drone. The moment his finger touched its key, Lantern Gate verified the stolen device and opened the lab's emergency controls. The reinforced doors unlocked. Police entered from both sides. Silas pulled a knife and held it against Tessa's throat. Stay back! You did not rush him. You looked at the mirror behind the servers. Mara was already inside the maintenance passage. She broke through the Finn's service panel, caught Silas's wrist, and drove him to the floor before the knife moved 1 centimeter. Tessa fell forward. You caught her. Silas screamed while officers handcuffed him. This family belongs to me. He stole everything. He isn't even your blood. Graham entered behind the police. He looked at his biological son on the floor and the adopted son holding Tessa alive. Blood made you my child, Graham said. Your choices made you a criminal. Silas stopped fighting. The sentence arrived years too late to protect your first life. In this one, it still mattered. Tessa clung to your jacket. I believed him. Even after everything, I believed him. Yes. Why did you come? Because you were in danger. After what I said to you? You helped her stand. Saving you does not mean the relationship is repaired. It means I refuse to become him. Tessa cried harder. Outside, Isolde waited in the command vehicle. The moment you entered, she checked your face, your pulse, and the camera feed behind you. Can I hold you? She asked. Please. You knelt beside the wheelchair and let her pull you close. The police lights painted the windows in red and blue. Your family stood outside the vehicle, uncertain whether they had the right to approach. For once, they waited for your choice. You opened the door. Graham spoke first. Ronan, I cannot undo what we did. No. Silas used us, but we allowed it. I allowed it. I made gratitude a debt you could never finish paying. Your mother began crying. Camille looked down.
Nadine held Tessa's hand.
Come home, Moira said. Not for the company, not for Silas. Come home because you are our son.
The words struck the child inside you with full force. You had wanted them in another life. You had died waiting for them. Isolde's hand remained in yours. She did not tighten it. She did not answer for you. I am your son, you said. That does not make the estate my home anymore. I will not return to the old arrangement. Moira covered her mouth. Does that mean we lose you? It means apologies are the beginning, not a key that restores everything. Nadine helped today. Camille preserved evidence. Tessa has truth to face. If each of you wants a relationship, build one with me separately. Slowly. No company conditions. Graham nodded with tears in his eyes. And me? Start by signing the original Lattice license without the family trust. Then attend counseling. We speak after. You want me in counseling?
Isolde owns half a security empire and still goes, you can survive 1 chair.
From beside you, Isolde said, the chairs are uncomfortable. Consider bringing your own. Graham made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. It was not forgiveness. It was a path narrow enough to require effort. That was all you offered. The criminal cases concluded over the next year. Silas received convictions for conspiracy, unlawful surveillance, intellectual property theft, arson, kidnapping, and attempted medical assault. Cassian's Mirror House records added privacy crimes across 4 countries. The 2 men blamed each other until prosecutors barely needed opening statements. Evelyn pleaded guilty to conspiracy and evidence theft. Her decision to cooperate after the fire reduced the sentence, but did not erase the banquet, the ledger operation, or the years of surveillance. Crest Capital entered restructuring. Her father lost control of the firm.
Bianca lost her Lantern Gate position for bypassing security. She later testified that Evelyn had asked her to monitor you at work. The Harrow operations director turned over the remaining internal accounts. Lattice Shield launched under the joint license you originally proposed. Your university lab owned the kernel. Harrow Biomedical built certified hardware. Lantern Gate audited every release. Veyne Systems received no automatic ownership, although Isolde repeatedly described this as an unreasonable marriage disadvantage. The first deployment protected 12 hospitals from a coordinated ransomware attack. No patient devices failed. Your 90-day chairman review became permanent after the external audit. The director who opposed you voted yes and handed you a 4-page complaint about documentation. You framed it beside the original North Star and Winter argument. Family repair moved more slowly. Nadine joined you for breakfast twice a month and never mentioned company business unless invited. Camille represented patients affected by the Mirror House privacy breach without charging fees. Tessa entered therapy and wrote you 6 apology letters before finally sending one. You read it. You answered with 2 sentences. Graham signed the license, resigned as trust administrator, and attended counseling with Moira. 6 months passed before you accepted dinner at the Harrow estate. You brought Isolde. Graham opened the outer gate himself. Nobody asked her to surrender the security team. Nobody called you ungrateful. Silas's old seat remained empty. The dinner was awkward, careful, and real. That counted as progress. Isolde's recovery refused to follow a clean schedule. Some weeks, her leg gained strength. Other weeks, inflammation returned and the brace became useless. She hated every setback. Twice, she accused the doctors of incompetence. Once, she tried to purchase the rehabilitation clinic after a therapist told her to rest. You invoked the canceled dinner penalty. The acquisition offer disappeared within 7 minutes. Dr. Saul called the response encouraging. Mara called it the only economic regulation that worked. 9 months after the tunnel collision, Isolde stood between parallel bars without the brace locking her knee. You waited at the other end. 1 step, Dr. Sen said. Isolde moved her left foot. The motion was small, unsteady, and entirely hers. Then another. Halfway across, her leg trembled. You started forward. She lifted one hand. Wait. So you waited. Not because you cared less, because she asked for the chance to reach you herself. Isolde took the final step and fell into your arms. The rehabilitation controller flashed gold. Mara cheered before remembering she was supposed to be dignified. Dr. Sen cried openly and blamed exhaustion. You held your wife while she laughed against your shoulder. Then a memory returned to her. The flooded vault. The broadcast key. Your burned ring against her chest. Her final wish. Isolde went still. I remember dying, she whispered. Your arms tightened. Do you regret it? You asked. I regret reaching you late. You cleared my name. A name is not a life. Your wish gave me this one. She looked at the distance she had crossed. Then promise me something. Ask. Do not spend this life repaying me. You smiled. That was my rule. I am adopting it. Efficient. I learned from my husband. 1 year after your courthouse marriage, you held a small ceremony inside the restored robotics building where you first met. The Firefly drone carried the rings. Mara checked it for explosives anyway. Dame Ophelia brought the 12 ceremonial cases from the rejected proposal. This time, every label carried your full name. You and Isolde kept 1 case containing the original marriage documents and donated the rest to patient cybersecurity research. Silas had once asked whether the gifts could remain with him. You hoped the memory kept him warm in prison. Your family attended as guests, not owners of the event. Graham sat beside Moira. Camille cried discreetly. Nadine did not bother being discreet. Tessa held the repaired Firefly before launch and apologized when her hands shook. Isolde walked down the short aisle using the brace and no wheelchair. Every step was slow. Nobody rushed her. When she reached you, she touched the platinum controller on her wrist. Your former fiancé still believes this was meant for her, she whispered. Not today. I am enjoying the fact quietly. Your quiet enjoyment is visible from space. The officiant asked whether you wished to repeat the vows from your civil marriage. Isolde answered first. I choose Ronan without owning him. I will protect him when danger is real, believe him when fear is only mine,
and ask before love becomes an order. You took her hands. I choose Isolde, without worshipping her sacrifice. I will love the woman living beside me, tell the truth even when it is less romantic, and stay by choice rather than debt. The firefly projected stars across the walls. In your first life, Evelyn taught you that history could be used like a leash. Your family taught you that gratitude could become a cage. Silas taught you that blood meant nothing without character. Isolde taught you something stranger. A person could love with terrifying intensity and still learn gentleness. She had died to return your name to you. You were reborn believing the only possible answer was to repay her with your life. But repayment would have turned love into another obligation. So you gave her something harder: honesty, boundaries, the right to hear no, the courage to keep asking.
And every ordinary morning that revenge stories usually forgot to include.
After the ceremony, Isolde pulled you toward the old maintenance tunnel.
Where are we going?
I purchased the robotics building. You stopped. Isolde, before counseling.
Why?
The fire exits were inadequate. Of course they were. She opened the tunnel door. Inside, the walls had been restored and lined with small lights shaped like fireflies. At the far end, waited a new community laboratory for students who could not afford equipment. The plaque carried two names: Winter and North Star Open Security Lab. You did not put our legal names on it, you said. Those children do not need billionaire surnames watching them work. They need tools. You looked at her. This purchase is approved. I knew it would be. Dangerous confidence. Accurate behavioral modeling. Entirely consensual dataset. You laughed and lifted her into your arms. I can walk, she protested.
Do you want me to put you down?
Isolde wrapped both arms around your neck. No, I wanted to hear you ask. You carried her through the same tunnel where you had once led a frightened girl toward safety. This time, neither of you was running from anyone. Outside, your family could not decide your worth. Evelyn could not call history ownership. Silas could not steal the life attached to your name. The future held no system screen, no guaranteed reward, and no promise that love would remain easy. It held choices. That was better. Isolde had died for you once. In this life, you did not ask her to die again. You asked her to live with you. And for the first time across both your lives, forever did not sound like a cage. It sounded like a door both of you had chosen to leave open.